had been babysitting for the Wattersons for a long time now, but never for a whole weekend. They wanted to travel to the south for the weekend and wanted me to watch over their kids. I agreed, since they were paying really good, and it was only for a couple of days. On Friday night, I went to their house, which was in a suburban neighborhood but a little isolated from the rest of the houses. It was a very elegant villa with long glass windows, which I was sure must have cost a fortune. Mrs. Watterson gave me their cell numbers as well as landline where I could contact them in case of emergencies. They left and I got settled in. I played a few board games with the children, fed them dinner and got them to bed. George was 8 and his little sister Janet was 5. They were not very troubling and soon complied and went to sleep. Since it was too early for me to go to bed, as I was more of a night owl, I grabbed a book from Mr. Watterson's library and started reading it on the couch. I was halfway through the first page when the home phone rang. "Hello," I said after picking it up. But there was only silence on the other end. I said hello a few times, but no one said anything, so I hung up. I began to read once again. After a few minutes, there was knocking on the front door. I looked at the clock. It was about 10. I walked towards the door and peered through the door's peephole. There was nobody standing on the porch. I opened the door and looked around. "Hello, is someone here?" I called out. No answer. I backed away and shut the door. I was beginning to feel really uneasy about all this. The home phone rang again, and I picked it up once more, but this time with an exasperated, "Hello!" I could hear ragged breathing on the other end and started to freak out. "Who are you?" I yelled. The breathing pace increased. I began to panic and hung up. Feeling unsettled, I went into Mr. Watterson's office to view the CCTV monitor to make sure the children were still asleep. They were. Suddenly a mass of black swept past the screen, as if someone had just passed in front of the camera. Fear engulfed me as I realized that there was someone else in the house with us. I ran upstairs, calling 911 on my way, and barged inside the room. There was no one there besides the kids. I checked under their beds and in the closet, being careful not to wake them, but did not find anyone. I noticed the window was cracked and closed it. I asked the 911 operator if she would stay on the line while I searched the rest of the house, and she agreed. After not finding anyone, I told her everything was okay and ended the call. Back downstairs, I called my mom to let her know the situation, and after double-checking to make sure that all the windows and doors were locked, I settled back on the couch with a few late-night snacks. Around midnight, I started to doze off when I heard a door close upstairs. I turned my head to face the stairs and saw Janet leaving the restroom. I asked her if she needed anything, and she said no. I watched as she went back into her room. I grabbed the remote and started flipping through the channels. I found a really good crime show on the ID channel and decided I needed more snacks to munch on while watching the show, and made my way into the kitchen again. When I got there, there was a man standing in front of the refrigerator with the door wide open, rummaging inside. I made sure not to make any noises, grabbed the house phone, and made my way back up the stairs into the kids' room again. Once there, I closed the door, locked it, and sat on the ground with my back against it. That way, if he tried to get in, he would have a hard time getting the door open with me leaning against it. Janet was still awake, and I asked her to come and sit with me while I called 911 again. I held her and made sure not to panic as I told the 911 operator that an unknown man was in the house. Minutes later, I heard the wails of sirens as the police came. By then, Janet was asleep again, and I placed her in her bed so I could go downstairs to open the door for the police. They searched the house, but found no one there. However, the basement door was open. When they searched, they found that the window had been broken. The Wattersons rushed home as soon as they heard, and I was more than happy to go home. I babysat for the Wattersons for the rest of the summer, but quit as soon as school started. During the rest of the time I babysat for them, I made sure to keep the basement door locked. It was the winter of 2014 and I had just turned 17. I was looking for a part-time job so I wouldn't have to rely on my parents for at least my basic expenses. My mother had told me about a family she was friends with. They were looking for a babysitter because they had to go somewhere in an emergency. They had 2 boys, Charlie and David. David was a 9-year-old boy, and Charlie was 3 years old. I knew that it would be a tough job to babysit the 3-year-old, but I wanted to make some money, so I accepted the job. My mom set up a meeting with myself and the kids' parents. They were really friendly and told me they were leaving on a Saturday night and would be back Sunday evening. It was a clear, starry night, and when I entered their house, the parents were getting ready to leave. They gave me some instructions and rules about the things that they did not want their kids to do, and on the back of the paper, their routines were written. It was a chill night. I watched some cartoons on the TV with the kids and played some games with them. David was not that hard to deal with, but Charlie was 3 and a bit moody, so you can imagine that it was not an easy job keeping him out of trouble. Soon, it was 8 p.m., and after eating dinner, I told the boys that it was time to go to bed. David was ready for bed, but Charlie looked a little bit distressed and said he did not want to sleep. I sat on the edge of his bed and read him a bedtime story until I was sure that he was deep asleep. After making sure that both kids were asleep, I went into the guest room so I could get some rest and wake up early enough to prepare breakfast for the kids in the morning. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to some giggling sounds from the kids' room. I rolled my eyes and made my way to the guest room doorway.
Charlie, is that you? Go back to bed!
I yelled. When I didn't get a reply, I assumed he had gone back to bed, and I too lay back down. Minutes later, I heard the giggling again and decided that enough was enough. I walked into their room and saw David sleeping in his bed. However, Charlie was smiling while looking out their bedroom window. I walked over to him and asked him why he was still awake. He just pointed his finger at the window. I didn't see anything, so I assumed he had spotted a stray cat or something and wanted to play with it. I carried him back to bed, read him another bedtime story, and waited until he fell asleep again. This time, I was too tired to go back to the guest room, so I snuggled up in the rocking chair in their room and started to go back to sleep as well. I don't know how long I was asleep before my eyes suddenly shot open. When they did, I saw a figure of a man hanging halfway out of the bedroom window. I didn't immediately panic, and it took me a few seconds to realize what was going on. But once I did, I immediately went into the defensive mode. I grabbed the first thing I could find in the dark, a really hard toy train, and started wailing on him with it. All of the commotion woke up the boys, and David tried to help me get the intruder out of the window. I yelled, telling him to take Charlie into their parents' room and to call 911. He did what he was told. The intruder fell back out of the window, and I quickly shut and locked it. I ran into the parents' room and barricaded the boys and myself inside until I heard the police sirens. After some time, the police arrived. I told them everything that had happened. The police responded by telling me that several people from the neighborhood had reported a man who was peeking at them from their windows. They helped to make sure that all the windows and doors in the house were locked and had a cop sit in his car and keep watch until the kids' parents arrived that evening. The man was never caught. That was the most horrific incident of my life, and it still gives me goosebumps whenever I think about it.